right, everybody, get ready, because we're doing a deep dive today on the wild story of Titan. This is a brand that went from nothing to a market cap of billions.
Yeah.
Billions with a B, folks. We've got some really insightful YouTube videos we'll be taking a look at that break down Titan's journey, and I think there's some serious business takeaways here.
Yeah, and a healthy dose of classic Indian ingenuity.
Yeah, for sure. We're going back in time a little bit here, back to the 70s and 80s in India. So think about it like this. Socialist economy, very limited options for consumers. And this government-run company called HMT, they pretty much had a monopoly on the watch market.
Yeah, HMT. Hindustan Machine Tools Limited. They were the big player, but they couldn't meet demand at all. So you had this massive market of people who wanted watches, especially as those foreign brands were becoming more and more visible, Like you could see them, but you couldn't get them.
So ripe for disruption, right. And that's where Xerxes Desai comes in. He was working for Tata Hotels, but he saw this huge opportunity in watches. But here's the thing. Big companies were not allowed to just enter the watchmaking game.
Right, that was reserved for smaller players or the government.
So
Yeah.
what did they do?
Well, this is where we get to one of the most fascinating parts of Titan's story, I think. Their use of Jugad.
Okay, for our listeners who aren't familiar with that term, can you break down Jugad for us?
Yeah, so it's this brilliant Indian concept, like a workaround, a clever solution to overcome limitations, resourceful innovation, and Titan. They really used it masterfully.
How did they do it? How'd they pull it off?
So they partnered with the Tamil Nadu Industrial Development Corporation, but their initial proposal to start making watches got rejected by the government. But they didn't give up. They got creative. They formed a separate private company called Questar Investments, almost like a stealth operation to slip under the government's radar. Even the name Titan itself, that's a Jugad move. It's a blend of Tata and Tamil Nadu.
That's so sneaky, but it worked.
It did. The government approved the venture. Tata quickly brought Questar Investments under their wing. And in 1984, Titan was officially born.
So they get the company going. But Jugad can only take you so far, right? What about the watches themselves?
Yeah, so this is where Titan's strategic brilliance really comes into play. At this time, the watch world was going through this big shift. You had mechanical watches, intricate, complex. But then you had this new quartz technology coming onto the scene.
A real tech showdown.
Exactly. And Titan made this crucial decision to embrace quartz. Fewer parts meant it was easier to manufacture. Plus, quartz watches are more accurate and user-friendly. Instead of winding your watch every day, you just change the battery once a year or so.
So they were really thinking about the whole customer experience from the beginning.
Absolutely. They understood that this wasn't just about selling a product. It was about offering a better experience. So while the Indian government was still pushing for these mechanical watches, Titan was building their whole operation around quartz.
Wow. So they were way ahead of the curve. But it seems like a really big risk to take, especially back then in that economic climate. Do we know anything about how they made that decision?
Well, I think it shows how much they understood global trends. They weren't just focused on India. They were looking at what was happening worldwide. And quartz was the future. They were willing to bet on it, even if it meant going against how things were normally done.
That's incredible. So they've got these great watches. How do they win over the market? What's their secret sauce?
Their strategy had a lot of different parts to it, which I think we'll get into more next time. But one of the main things was understanding that to build a successful brand, you need more than just a great product. You need a great customer experience. From the second someone walks into the store to any interaction they have with customer service, Titan really wanted to get this right.
Okay, I am hooked. Let's unpack all those strategies in part 2 of our Titan deep dive. All right, so last time we left off with Titan making this big decision to use quartz technology, which really set the stage for their success in the watch market. But they didn't stop there. They ended up branching out into jewelry, eyewear, fragrances, the list goes on.
Yeah, and with each venture, they really understood the Indian consumer. And they were always ready to adapt their strategies to fit the specific market.
Let's get into one of their most successful ventures, Tanishq, their jewelry brand. I think for a lot of people outside of India, jewelry is just jewelry, but in India, it's a totally different story, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Back in the 80s and 90s, the Indian jewelry market was all over the place, dominated by small, family-run businesses. And trust was the most important thing. Gold was seen as an investment, not really a fashion statement.
So how did Titan even approach a market like that? Did they just try to do what worked for them with watches?
They realized pretty quickly that wouldn't work. The jewelry market was a different beast. When Tanishq launched in 1994, they tackled the trust issue right away. They introduced the carat meter, This device that could accurately measure the purity of gold, it was revolutionary.
Wait, so before this, there wasn't a good way for customers to know if they were getting real gold?
You imagine going into a jewelry store, and you're not even sure if the gold you're buying is pure. It was a big concern for a lot of people. So Tanishq took away that fear by being transparent and making sure people knew what they were getting.
Like they were saying, we understand you're making a big investment here,
Yeah.
and we're going to make sure you're getting what you deserve.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about the technology. They also understood that buying gold was a huge financial decision for a lot of Indians. So they came up with a Golden Harvest savings scheme. This allowed people to make payments over time towards a jewelry purchase.
So kind of like a layaway plan for gold?
Exactly. It made gold more accessible for more people. And it made people feel loyal to the brand because they were engaged with it for a longer time. It wasn't just good marketing. It was a deep understanding of their customers.
So they built trust, they made gold more accessible. What about the actual jewelry designs? Did they stick with traditional stuff?
Well, this is another example of how Titan could adapt. They saw that jewelry was becoming more than just an investment. It was becoming a fashion statement, especially for younger people. So they started to design more contemporary pieces for this new audience.
Did they face any resistance from the traditional jewelers?
I mean, there was definitely some pushback, but Titan was changing things up. And they weren't afraid to take risks. They had confidence in their vision.
And let's be honest, those Tanishq ads were incredible.
Oh, yeah. They weren't just selling jewelry. They were selling emotions, stories, a sense of connection. They really resonated with people.
So we've got watches, jewelry. What other industries did Titan go after?
Well, they went into eyewear with Titan Eye Plus. They offered stylish frames and good quality lenses.
So basically the same strategy as watches. Premium product, great customer service.
Pretty much. But they also added something different. They offered free eye checkups to show that they cared about their customers' well-being.
That's smart. Makes them seem more trustworthy.
Exactly. And they weren't afraid to try out niche markets. These started Fastrack, which was aimed at young people, with trendy and affordable watches and accessories.
I remember those ads. They were really bold.
Yeah, they were speaking to a completely different audience. Fastrack was all about self-expression and being an individual.
It's amazing how Titan could create all these different brand identities, but still keep a consistent brand overall.
It really shows their understanding of branding.
And then their skin, their fragrance brand. That seems completely different from watches and jewelry.
It was. But again, Titan saw an opportunity. Fragrances were getting more and more popular in India, but there weren't many good Indian brands.
So they went for it.
Yeah, and they kept the same focus on quality. Skin perfumes used really good ingredients, and they had a sophisticated brand identity to appeal to people who wanted luxury.
So Titan has had success with watches, jewelry, eyewear, and fragrances. It's like everything they touch turns to gold. But I'm sure there were challenges along the way.
Of course. Every success story has its ups and downs. I think one of the biggest challenges for Titan was the rise in e-commerce.
That makes sense. They were so successful with their stores, and then everything started to change.
Yeah, they had to adapt. So they launched their own online store.
So they didn't just ignore the internet?
No, they embraced it. They also partnered with big e-commerce companies to make sure people could buy their products everywhere. It was a smart move.
Did their retail partners have any issues with that?
I mean, there were some concerns, but Titan made it clear that e-commerce was there to help, not to replace their stores.
It's interesting how Titan always seems to find a way to change, while still sticking to their values.
It shows how good their leadership is and their understanding of the market.
I'm curious, though. Is there a limit to this expansion? Can a brand spread itself too thin?
That's a great question, and one I think we should explore in part 3 of our deep dive. We can talk about Titan's future, their innovation, and the challenges they face.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We spent the last 2 parts talking about the incredible story of Titan, from their start in a socialist economy to their expansion across different industries.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey. They've really shown that they know how to adapt and innovate. They always seem to be in tune with what Indian consumers want.
But things are always changing, right? What are some of the challenges and opportunities that Titan's facing as we look to the future?
Well, one of the biggest things impacting businesses these days is sustainability. And Titan's taking it seriously.
So what does that actually look like? Is it more than just a marketing campaign?
Oh, for sure. They've actually made changes in how they do things, like using recycled materials in their packaging and reducing their carbon footprint.
Yeah, it seems like consumers are really starting to care about sustainability, especially younger people.
Exactly. It's not just a bonus anymore. It's something brands have to do if they want to stay relevant. And Titan's taking a really comprehensive approach. They're even working with their suppliers to make sure they're sourcing materials ethically and treating workers fairly.
Wow. So they're really trying to make sustainability a part of their business.
Yeah, exactly. They're not just following trends. They're trying to get ahead of the curve.
So sustainability is one big trend. What else is Titan thinking about?
Well, technology is a big one. Titan's been making some moves in the smartwatch world.
Oh yeah, I've seen some of their ads. Are they just jumping on the smartwatch bandwagon? Or are they doing something different?
I think they're actually doing a good job of combining what they're good at with new technology. They're adding smart features to their regular watches, so you get that classic Titan style, but with more functionality.
Like what kind of features?
The usual stuff: fitness tracking, sleep monitoring, even contactless payments. Things people really care about these days.
I can see why people would like that. You get a good quality watch. Plus all the cool features.
Yeah, it's a smart move. They're not getting rid of their history. They're just making it better.
It's like they're finding that balance between tradition and innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think we've seen that throughout Titan's whole story. They're not afraid to try new things, but they always do it in a way that stays true to who they are.
And then their marketing has always been great. Those ads are so memorable.
Oh, yeah. They've always been really good at capturing Indian culture. Their ads are often emotional, and they really stick with you.
It feels like they're trying to do more than just sell something.
I think that's right. They want to create a brand that people admire, a brand that stands for something.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on Titan, what's the big takeaway?
I think the biggest lesson is that you have to be able to adapt. Look at Titan. They understood their market, they anticipated trends, and they were willing to change. But they also stayed true to their values.
And they went from those humble Jew-God beginnings to becoming a global company. It's a reminder that taking risks can pay off.
Absolutely. So for our listeners out there, what are some Titan-like moves you could be making?
Maybe it's time to shake things up in your industry. Or find a new way to connect with your customers. Don't be afraid to think big.
And remember, building a successful brand is about more than just what you're selling. It's about trust, making connections, and always trying to be better.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive on Titan. I'm excited to see what they do in the future.
Me too. It's a story that shows us anything is possible if you have some ingenuity and you're willing to work hard.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing boundaries.
So that was today's episode of my Side Hustle Weekend podcast. For everyone listening, if you're ready to take action on what you learned today, here's where you can find more resources. First, head over to sidehustleweekend.com. I've put together detailed guides, templates, and case studies. And while you are there, don't miss out on my free newsletter, Side Hustle Weekend. If you found value in today's discussion, hit that like button and subscribe to join our Weekend Hustlers community. Turn on notifications so you don't miss our episodes where we break down more side hustle strategies. Check the description below for all the tools and resources we mentioned today. Remember, everyone's journey starts with a single step. Whether you're looking to make an extra $500 a month or build something bigger, start with what you learned today and take action. So, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode where we'll break down another practical way to grow your income.